Greetings guys, girls, and non-binary pals, and welcome back to another video. I hope that you are well, and I hope that you are fighting, because there is a lot to be fighting for. As usual, there'll be a link in the description to the page on my website with a bunch of petitions, donations, emails to send to MPs, etc, etc. Before we get into it, I just want to give a little disclaimer. If I am slurring my words or talking weird at any point, it's because at the ripe age of 21, my gums decided to grow a brand new tooth. So my wisdom tooth is coming through and it feels like I have been chewing on broken glass. It hurts real bad. And I just put some numbing gel on my mouth, so I can't really feel my mouth very much. It's why I'm not wearing makeup too. It kind of hurts to touch my face, but here we are. I wanted to make this video, so that is what I am gonna do. Recently, a lot of people have been asking me to talk about Prager U, and I've seen a lot of other YouTubers making videos about Prager U, and a lot of the videos that you're recommending me are their anti-trans videos, and I do agree that those need to be talked about. However, I am not a trans person, and there are a lot of amazing trans creators who do create really good commentary on those videos and are able to give their own experiences. So I would recommend watching those videos if you want to see people talk about that. So Sam Collins, Samantha Lux, Jamie Dodger, all of them, fantastic videos. I am going to be talking about a different video that Prager U have recently put out, and that is Capitalism Wins. Because they say some shit in that video and I really want to talk about it. It really needs to be talked about, and I have a lot to say. There's a good discussion to be had, so that is what we are going to do today. So Prager U, if you don't know, is a YouTube channel that puts out a bunch of videos that are very conservative and promoting conservative ideas and educating people on conservative ideologies. And they, much like Abby Shapiro, much like Ben Shapiro, and channels like that, seem very well put together. They come across as though they know what they're talking about when they absolutely do not. And a lot of what they say is very fabricated, it's very blocked off, but they sound very convincing. And that is what makes them so dangerous. That is the big problem with them, is that they sound factual. They sound like they know exactly what they're saying. And so that's why I think it's important to talk about, and that's why I'm going to be talking about it today. So let's get into it, shall we?
There are many in the West, including many who should know better, who find it difficult, unpopular, or just plain embarrassing to defend capitalism.
It is embarrassing to defend capitalism. That's why.
I take the opposite view. We should double down on it for a very simple reason. It remains not just the best, but the only chance for the least fortunate in the world to make life better for themselves and their children.
I'm sorry. The system that created poverty, that created the huge disparity in wealth and status and class, the system that has driven people to be homeless, to starve, to not be able to get medical care, that system that created all those issues is the solution to all of those issues. Obviously, that's definitely how this works. I like that capitalists talk about this like that. My favorite depiction of this is that tweet that's got the slums over here and then the nice fancy building right here with just a split line. And it's this is life under capitalism. This is life under socialism. No, honey, this is life under capitalism. The whole thing. We live under capitalism. That's what created this disparity in the first place. I don't know what you think goes on. It's you're well, I'm privileged. I benefit from capitalism, so therefore everyone else can and does too. That's not how it works. Capitalism is what created the gap. Capitalism is what created poverty. Where do you think poverty comes from?
I grew up in South Carolina as the daughter of Indian immigrants. My mom started a small shop selling clothes and gifts that grew into a successful business. She showed my brothers, my sister, and me what it meant to live the American dream.
I would like to take a moment and say that I looked into her and her family background, and she makes it out to seem like her family moved from India with no money and they had to start from nothing and work their way up. They came to the US from India on like university scholarships. They have like really good degrees. Her father was a lecturer at a university and her mother was a teacher at a public school, which is a socialist system to make their money to be able to then do the boutique. They didn't just come from India with nothing, manage to somehow afford to open a shop and then become successful. That's not how it works for anyone. And the fact that she's playing it off to be like, yes, capitalism does this. We came from nothing and then now we have success and anyone could do anything they want. That's bullshit. That's not how it works. And you are very well aware that that is not how it works.
Jobs provide dignity and purpose. And as I often say, when you give a person a job, you take care of a family.
Most people do not have the luxury of finding dignity and purpose in a job. Most people now take whatever work they are given because the job market is so competitive. You take what you can and you get shit pay because that is all that is available to you. Most people don't do work that they enjoy. Most people don't do work that they want to do. They do work that they have to do because they need to do it to survive. And they don't have the option or availability or capacity to end up doing something they enjoy because they've never been given the opportunity to do so. Because all they have to do is focus on this one job and work it every single day, day in and day out, just to be able to survive. And it doesn't help a family. So many jobs can't even support one person. The price of living has gone up exponentially and the price of wages has not budged in so long.
In 2018, I stood on the Simon Bolivar Bridge at the border of Venezuela and Colombia. I held a beautiful baby girl. Her mother told me all she wanted for her daughter was a future of freedom. They were one of millions of Venezuelan families whose lives have been destroyed by the country's socialist policies.
Oh, so you want to talk about socialism in Venezuela, do you? Oh, you want to talk about socialism in Venezuela? Okay. Americans love to sit here and talk about socialism in Venezuela and how it ruined their country and how it's war-torn and everyone's dying and starving and it's a terrible, terrible place and it's all because of socialism, but refuse to talk about what actually happened. Socialism was working. It was working. And the US felt threatened by that. The US didn't want other countries to see that socialism worked. The US didn't want Americans to see that socialism worked because that would mean that they would have less money and less power. They also didn't want to lose their control in Venezuela. They didn't want to lose business in Venezuela, and by a socialist market, that is what was happening. They didn't want Venezuela to be able to be free of their influence. So they started sending in their military. They started training people on the right and started killing thousands upon thousands of people in order to stop socialism from happening. They didn't want socialism to be successful. They wanted to teach people a lesson and say, look, socialism is bad. Socialism will get you killed. Socialism is evil. Socialism is evil. Communism is evil. Capitalism is the only way. Look what happens when you use socialism. But it only failed because the US got involved. And that is a recurring pattern that people refuse to acknowledge. You aren't taught that in school because they don't want you to know. And people don't look into it because why would you question it? The amount of brainwashing that happens to children and adults in the US is terrifying. You don't know half of it. And why would you think to look into it more? You should be able to believe your teachers. You should be able to believe what you learn at school. And unfortunately, in a lot of instances, you can't, especially when it comes into American intervention in other countries. A lot of shit is the US's fault for intervening. And this is one of those examples. Socialism was working in Venezuela, and the US stepped in and fucked it and ruined the country, got involved, manipulated the government, and just fucked it.
Other democracies, including Israel, India, and the UK, experimented with socialism.
As far as I'm aware, the UK didn't experiment with socialism. After the war, there was no money. There was nothing left. The country had been bombed. We needed healthcare. We needed things that were publicly owned in order to rebuild the country. And that's when like the NHS and free public healthcare came in. That's when transport sectors went into being under the government. It wasn't a socialist country. There were just socialist systems put in place. The UK has never been a socialist country. We just needed socialist systems to rebuild the country.
Only to abandon it. And only then did they thrive.
I wouldn't say the UK is thriving. Just like the States, not thriving. Just like most places, not thriving. There's a lot that needs to be fixed. Saying thriving implies that it's perfect, and it's not. There is so much poverty and so much injustice and so much shit that happens constantly. And socialism would help a lot. But at least we have a couple socialist systems like healthcare, unlike the States. What the fuck are you doing? Why don't you have public healthcare? Why don't you have free healthcare? That's absolutely... what the fuck? That doesn't make any sense to me. I don't understand at all.
Instead of teaching students to reject our country's history and founding ideals, schools should have a required class on the history and collapse of the Soviet Union.
I didn't go to school in the States, but Kat did online American school. So I did confirm this with her, and this is what I assumed, but it was confirmed. Americans learn pretty much exclusively American history. There is so much, like I said, brainwashing that goes into American history lessons. There's so much whitewashing, so much imperialism and nationalism and patriotic brainwashing. And there is a ton of learning about the Cold War and the fall of the Soviet Union. That no one at school is being taught to reject American history and the founding fathers. That's unfortunately not how it goes. There should be more being taught to question it and being taught actual history and not a whitewashed Christian version of the truth. I've heard stories about some things that you get taught in history class in the States, and it's quite terrifying and just a whole load of bullshit because you want people to blindly follow your country. Stop lying. Stop lying. You know that people are being taught negatively about the Soviet Union, and you know people are being taught to think negatively about communism and communists and Russian people by the fact that in every TV show and movie you have, every single bad guy is always Russian. They're always Russian every single time. It's like, bad guy, oh, Russian spy. Oh, communist scum. And you think that they're not being taught that, like, Russia bad, communism bad. Like, that's, like, it's even everywhere in your media. Like, don't act like that's not a thing that the whole country shares.
Recently, the chief executives of some of America's largest companies changed their self-definition. They said companies should focus on customers, workers, and communities. This is just politically correct nonsense.
If companies focusing on customers, workers, and communities is politically incorrect nonsense, what's not nonsense? What should they be saying? What should they be doing? Are those not the three most important things? Why is that politically correct nonsense?
These CEOs know that's what successful businesses already do. It's what they have to do to survive in our capitalist system. A company that cheats its customers, mistreats its workers, and abuses its community won't be around long.
That is just the biggest load of bullshit I've ever heard. We all know that is a lie. We all know that that's not true. Just look at what's happening with Amazon at the moment. They've literally been found to be mistreating their workers to the point where they have to pee in bottles because they're overworked that much and they can't even go to the bathroom. They've had to pee in bottles. And Amazon is one of the biggest, most wealthy companies in the world that has ever existed. And you're saying that they have to treat their workers well in order to be successful? No, they don't. And companies are very, very, very aware of that. They can literally treat their workers however they want, and they can get away with it. The job market is so competitive, and they are very, very aware of that. The cost of living has gone up, and people need work. People need work now more than ever. And companies don't pay people very much, but unfortunately, that is all you can get. People will take whatever jobs they can get because they need money to be able to survive. And so even if you work in absolutely appalling circumstances, people will do it because they have to, because they have no other choice, because they need to pay for rent, because they need to pay for food, because they need to live. And companies are refusing to pay people more money. Companies are refusing to give people better working circumstances because they don't have to. Because people will work for them regardless because they need to. That's why we say companies exploit workers. Because they are very aware that they will have workers no matter how badly they treat them, no matter how little they pay them, because those people need that job in order to live. So they can do what they want. The companies can do whatever the fuck they want. And people will still work for them because if they don't work for them, they will die. So no one pays well. No one, because they don't have to. And that's why we want to raise minimum wage. Because no one's going to raise wages voluntarily, because why would they if they don't have to? Because the people at the top want the biggest amount of profit that they can get. They don't need that profit. They don't need any more money than they have, but greed is what powers them. And they won't pay you anymore if they don't have to. If people are still going to work for them, regardless of how little they treat them, regardless of how badly they treat them, regardless of how little money they put into them, then they're going to continue to do that. And that is why we've been stuck in this place for so long, and price of living has gone up, but wages haven't, because they haven't needed to. They haven't been forced to change, and people are still taking the jobs, because what else can they do?
Until the unforeseeable shutdown of the economy as a response to the coronavirus, it was working better than ever. Unemployment was at a 50-year low. Wages were rising at the fastest rate in a decade. More women and minorities were working than ever before. Poverty was at a record low in America.
That is not the flex that you think it is. Less people are poor. Less people are homeless. More women have jobs. More minorities have jobs. There's still like thousands upon thousands that don't. And there's still like thousands and thousands and thousands that are struggling and suffering and living below the poverty line and starving and dying. But like, less of them are, so it's working better than ever. I know that capitalism is what created this divide and is what is keeping people below the poverty line, but if you look, some more people are doing better than they were before, so maybe it's not all that bad. All of that unemployment and suffering is still unnecessary, and it is caused by capitalism. Capitalism isn't fixing it, it's what caused it. And the causation is not the solution to the problem. I don't know what these people think caused poverty. I don't know what these people think created all these problems. They see themselves in a position that benefits from capitalism, and therefore they're like, capitalism is great. But they know. They do know. They know that it's not working. They know that it's what's harming people, but they are actively benefiting from it. And the only way they can continue to actively benefit from it is by telling people that it's the best, and by trying to encourage people that they too can be successful. They will sit here and tell you that capitalism is the answer. It's the solution. It is how you will be successful, and that one day you too can be successful and you can achieve your dreams and you can be rich and you can have anything that you like. Because if they don't tell you that, they can no longer benefit off of you. They have to tell you that there is hope. They have to tell you that you can get there if you work hard enough, because otherwise you won't work. And if you don't work, they don't get to benefit off of you. The people at the top, the upper class, could not survive without the working class. Everything stops when the working class stops. So necessary, the backbone to our society, and everything would come to a screeching halt when they stop working. And those people are desperately aware of that. And they don't pay you. They don't pay people enough because it's, well, maybe if you work harder, you'll get a little bit more. Maybe if you work a bit harder, you'll earn more. You can work your way up to the top. And if they let one person in 3 million work their way to the top, they can use that as a success story and say, look, that person did it, so can you. That's all it takes. One person needs to do well coming from the lower class, and then they can be like, look, They did it, so can you. All you have to do is work hard. They say it as though they aren't the ones withholding the opportunity. They have the opportunity to help you be successful, to give you more, to give you a better standard of living. And they choose to withhold that from you because they need to give you motivation to work hard so that they can continue to benefit off of your hard work. It's all just a big game with very, very few people at the top. And everyone else is their pawns. And they are very well aware of that, but they are very, very good at playing the game. And they have everyone fooled because the people at the top and the people in the middle class and the upper class don't want to acknowledge that they have a privilege. They don't want to acknowledge that they aren't where they are because of hard work. They would rather say, no, I'm here because I deserve it, than acknowledge that they have an upper hand. And the people who are being exploited in the working class, even lower middle class, don't want to accept that they're being mistreated and exploited, because that then removes the blind false hope that they have of one day being a millionaire, of being successful. And that is why there are so many people who are in the working class who are more conservative, because they have been sold this idea that if they just work hard enough, they can also be rich and successful and do all these things. And that is why they're so pro-capitalism, because that is what they have been told in order to drive them to continue to work and to continue to feed into capitalism and benefit society in a way that no one else will, because they haven't been informed otherwise. And it is really heartbreaking, and it is really upsetting that this is the system that we live in, and this is the thing people refuse to acknowledge for the reasons I listed and for more. It's all being controlled by very few people, and it's just heartbreaking. And I hope that more people start to see it and start to realize it, and that it is a conversation that we have more often, and that it does change, and that we are able to at least put more socialist systems in place. Slowly, bit by bit, we can work towards something better. At the very least, we need to raise the minimum wage. At the very least, we need to acknowledge the mistreatment of workers. At the very least, we need to redistribute the wealth. At the very least, we need to tax the rich and have free healthcare everywhere, you know, like most places do. We do here in the UK, we do in New Zealand, we do in Australia, and even the conservatives, even the far right, totally accept and are very pro our universal healthcare plans. Because that is what we have, that is what we're used to, and that is a great thing, and it is very, very important, and I've never seen anyone oppose it. The US is just a whole new place. It terrifies me, honestly. I do not understand it at all. I don't understand it in the slightest. I don't know how you could view that as bad. I don't know how you can be such a selfish person to think that you deserve healthcare over someone else because what? You work harder? No. You were born into a more privileged position. You didn't work harder. You had more. That's the problem. Is that this isn't a matter of who works harder. This is a matter of what you were born into. Because most of the time, that's how it stays. So, yeah. Anyway, I'm in a lot of pain now. And I am upset and I am angry and I would like change. So, I'm going to go take some more painkillers and drink a hot tea and hold an ice pack to my face. Thank you so much to my Kiwi Fruit and Kiwi Bird channel members whose names are up on the screen right now. And a massive thank you to my channel member of the day, Bethany. I love and appreciate you so, so much. Thank you so much for joining. If you would like to become a channel member, you can click the top link in the description or the little blue join button. You get my videos a day early, as well as 10% off my shop at thequeerkiwi.com/shop. And as a Kiwi Bird member, you get little extra videos that don't make it into my main video. I hope that you learned something today. I got quite angry and ranty. I've been doing that a lot recently, but I hope that you learned something. Let me know what your thoughts are. Let me know if you want to see me talk about any more capitalism stuff, if you want me to talk about any more Prager U videos, or anything else at all. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Follow me on Instagram, The Queer Kiwi, and Twitter, That Queer Kiwi. I hope that you enjoy the rest of your day. Stay safe. Keep fighting. I love you. Mwah. And when you close your eyes, you replace